When this fucking beat drop, you already know what fucking time it is.
Daily Dose is on now. Check it out, y'all.
So back in February, when the pandemic hit, we were all very hopeful that things were going to go back to normal very, very soon. We were hoping that by May, maybe by the 4th of July, by Christmas, things were going to get back to normal, maybe better, but they haven't. And so today we decided to bring the director of LA Department of Mental Health with us, Mr. Jonathan Sharon, Dr. Jonathan Sharon, here to tell us a little bit of how we can cope with the new normal, because mental health has become one of the top priorities for all of us to stay sane and to be able to cope with the changes, I think we can say.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. And very appreciative that Power 106 is raising this issue and giving our communities an opportunity to think about it and talk about it, to provoke the dialogue. First thing I'll say is that this year has been about many different types of collective trauma, not just from the virus, but also from its impact on the economy, which is I think affected people differentially. The social unrest, which is longstanding, but absolutely must be dealt with head on. And then even the information overload and the conflicting data that we get just from the news and from politicians, which creates so much confusion. This year has been unprecedented in terms of the amount of stress that it's kind of put on people. And the holidays really typically are about being together and being with the people who you love the most, family and friends. And for obvious reasons this year, that's been modified. And that's a difficult thing for people to handle. And we're seeing that with the numbers of folks who are traveling against what, are kind of pretty straightforward guidelines around, safer at home approaches to managing the pandemic. And I, would say that certainly as I think about it in my professional life, but also personally, we've been forced to learn a lot over the course of this year. We've been forced to develop new approaches, new traditions, new routines. And I'd like to think that some of those learnings will be paid forward in coming years as a part of a brighter and more enriched future. That, in other words, the lessons that we've learned under all of this duress can be additive to the way that we conduct ourselves as people and as communities.
Now, I have a question, because without the ability to get together and starting these new traditions and starting these new Zoom calls, or like myself, I made tamales over the phone on Zoom with my family, since we usually would get together, it's really tough on us. And sometimes I feel, I don't know what the word would be when I complain. Like, I feel like there's people who are going through more, who are suffering more, who are in hospitals. And so for me to complain and say, oh, I can't get together with my family, seems a little bit privileged, or I'm not sure how I would say it, but it's a real feeling to feel the lack of family or the ability to get together. So, my question to you more than anything is just, how do we deal with the feeling of shame of wanting to be with our family and we can't, especially during these tough moments?
Well, we're all being pressed in many ways and from multiple directions. And one of the things that I'll say about human beings and the human condition is that a lot of times stressors, even in the forms of disasters, can create growth. And in the mental health field, we talk about post-traumatic growth. Most folks, are very familiar with the concept of post-traumatic stress, post-traumatic stress disorder, even some who refer to it as post-traumatic stress injury. But the fact of the matter is that for many of us, there is an option to grow. And a part of that growth really, I think, reflects upon my initial comments that that there are new ways forward, that we can figure out other ways to navigate our environment that are beneficial. And what I will say, in the big context, all of the stressors that are coming to us as a collective, and I would say in LA County, in the state, in our country, and around the globe, are about the interdependence of people, our need to listen to one another, our need to stay distant but connected as an expression of love and caring, the absolute necessity for there to be inclusion in our society, that we cannot exclude people based on, for example, a disability. If you're talking about the field of mental health and severe, profound mental illness, as well as many other disabilities, that people who have different histories, come from different parts of the world, have different religions. Everybody must be included, and the memo from, I believe, the universe to all of us is take it seriously. It's the only way that we're actually going to flourish. And what we say in the Department of Health is that none of us are well until all of us are well. And I do believe that that's becoming a theme folks understand more and more. And this epidemic, this pandemic, is forcing people who have never been challenged with mental health issues, whether it's anxiety or depression, to recognize the impact of anxiety and depression and other forms of kind of mental illness or mental suffering. And in that context, I believe that this field is going to grow and that more and more people are going to accept it, and that stigma is going to finally become less and less a barrier for people reaching out, getting access, to the help that they need.
Now, the Department of Mental Health has a helpline. It's 1-800-854-7771. And do you feel like you said, this field is going to get bigger, and now more people are paying attention to mental health and to other people saying that they're having issues with loneliness or the feeling of just being alone? Maybe you can be in a household filled with people, but you're still feeling alone. What do you recommend to people who are going through that right now?
It's a really great question. And, loneliness is a huge, huge problem. And people who suffer from loneliness, who are disconnected, can find themselves in very dangerous and precarious situations. For one thing, I think it's critical to check in with one another and to make sure that the people who are around you, whether it's in your family or your neighborhood or at work, that getting back to being interdependent, we have to be able to check in with each other, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. And the less of a big deal it is, the more forthcoming people will be if they're actually not doing well. And one of the things that I think is really undervalued is the ability to listen. And listening comes in many forms. Listening to someone that's trying to express themselves rather than having answers for them. Listening quietly, meaning observing someone's behavior, seeing maybe a slight change in their personality, in the routines that they've kind of demonstrated historically. Those are all signs that something may be going on. And if we reach out, in a heart-forward way, which is what we talk about at the Department of Mental Health, it can make all the difference. And I really would encourage that. People don't recognize how small efforts to reach out, to serve one another, really will be the key going forward to getting through this pandemic, and frankly, to creating a more cohesive community where everyone will have a much better chance at thriving.
I really like, Dr. Sharon, that you said checking in on our neighbors, because during this time specifically, we're like, me, what do I need? How do I feel? The people in my household, and we forget to check on our friends or on our neighbors, someone as close to us. Hey, do you need anything? Can I help you with anything? And my next question has to be about social media and TV, and because now we're more connected than ever, yet feeling more disconnected than ever. And so do you recommend maybe staying off TV or social media, or doing it differently? What do you recommend for us who are just, because we're at home now more than ever and we're watching TV and we're on our phones? What do you recommend for our mental health with that?
Well, I call this a different kind of TMI. Too much information. We're all paying attention to our phones and to our TVs, I would say at an unprecedented level. And even if the information was all accurate, it's an overload. It's overwhelming, and you can't absorb it. You can't process it. So it becomes in some ways destabilizing. Not to mention the fact that tons and tons of information is really suspect in terms of its veracity and really helpfulness. So this is a big issue. And as you say, we can be more connected through technology, but become more disconnected. And I think that's really, really important. How great will it be when we can leverage all of the technology-based connectivity and kind of embrace, in-person activities, which will come back. The other thing really is there's basics. Sleep well, eat well, keep your routines as much as you can. Get exercise. Everybody needs exercise. Exercise is really a way to kind of connect with nature. Or certainly your physicality in a way that doesn't have to get lost right now. And then the other thing is stay away from, the booze and the drugs as ways to cope, because they actually create
the booze? Wait, what?
They're a mechanism that really in some ways fuels disconnection and isolation. And, we have to kind of realize that. I'm always very focused on connectedness, because I think that connectedness is really the elixir for well-being. And we can't lose track of that. And we have to always, even when you were talking before about indulging in self and worrying about self, well, that actually becomes a disconnecting activity. Whereas serving others, and I would even say in super basic ways, opening doors, letting people ahead of you in traffic, being respectful to someone's space. If you're in line and there's a person that's really in a rush, let them go. These are ways that we as a society can really move forward in a respectful way and in a way that's connected, because there's clear intention when we interface with others in a considerate manner.
Well, thank you so much, Doctor. I really appreciate it. And just one more question before we go. You mentioned sleeping well, exercising, eating right. But if someone came up to you and said, one tip, one piece of advice, just one, for someone's mental health state of being to be on point during these tough times, what would it be? Just one. Out of all the ones you already gave us, what's the one that you think is essential and important?
Keep your sleep routine. If you can keep your sleep routine, everything else kind of can fall into place. And sleep is really, I consider it a vital sign. People talk about the medical vital signs, of your temperature and your pulse and your blood pressure. I always throw in sleep, because when someone's not sleeping well consistently, their mental health is kind of, falling off the rails. So just, if you have to focus on one thing, keep a sleep routine. Read about sleep hygiene and what what can help you, establish and maintain healthy sleep habits.
But also, sleeping too much is no bueno, right?
Sleeping too much is no bueno. That's not a healthy routine. So you don't want to sleep too much. You don't want to sleep too little. You don't want to be going to sleep at 2 a.m. one day and then 8 o'clock the next day. You have to be vigilant about the routines in terms of the amount of sleep and the routine. And the fact of the matter is, I don't want to get all neuroscientific on you, but the brain actually is very, very sensitively tuned into certain rhythms. And sleep is one of the basic rhythms. And if you can really keep it on track, other aspects of your life, like I said before, will fall into place, including your emotional state, as well as your ability to function, cognitively.
All right. So Dr. Sharon said, sleep right, eat right, exercise, and be helpful to others and think about others and disconnect while staying connected.
Bingo.
Thank you so much, doctor. We really appreciate you coming down. And remember, you guys, that you can get any mental health resources or help and support by calling the hotline. That's 800-854-7771.
Yep, Melissa, if I could, the helpline is really critical. And if you call that number, we can provide emotional support. We can help you get other resources. We also have a wealth of information on our website. And lastly, we have something called Headspace, which is a mental health app that we've offered to Los Angeles County for free. And it's very, very helpful to a lot of people. So I salute you, Melissa. Say hi to Nick, and let's here's to a bigger, brighter, and bolder 2021.
Happy holidays. Thank you so much for being here with us. We really appreciate it. And I think now more than ever, these conversations are essential and necessary for all of us to not be ashamed and to be able to communicate about what's important.
Amen. Thank you.
Bye, doctor. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
When this fucking beat drop, you already know what fucking time it is.
Now, check it out, y'all.